So tonight with us for our story sharing and interview time, we have Abbey Rivers. And so we're really grateful to her for taking some time to share her story with us and her story around a new perspective and some perspective shifts that have occurred for her in her life. So, welcome, Abbey. Do you want to tell us just a little bit? Many people probably already know you, but just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're up to these days.
My name's Abby. I'm 18 years old. I go to Eden Prairie High School. I don't really play a sport, but I like to work out. I'm in the Minnesota National Guard. Um, I like animals. That's pretty much it.
That's a lot. That's great. Um, so when we talked earlier, you told me a little bit about a trip that you went on, a long trip. And do you want to tell us a little bit about where you went and why you went there?
I went to Thailand for 4 weeks at the very beginning of last summer. I paid for everything myself, so it took a lot of time for
I
that.
bet.
I went to study elephants in a sense, and I went with a group of 18 other high school kids from around the country. I didn't know them, they didn't know me, but we all met up at the airport.
Wow.
Um, we traveled around a lot of different cities, a lot of different things, met a lot of different people, learned a lot about the culture, but mostly we were there just to watch the elephants and learn a lot about that.
hmm made you decide to do that? Why Thailand and why elephants and
Elephants are my favorite animal, and I was gonna go on a program like this like 2 or 3 years ago, but I was young and I didn't have a job, so I couldn't really work and pay for my trip.
hmm
So now that I have a job, I was able to actually save up and pay for it and go.
That's awesome. So you were specifically looking for
Elephants.
elephants. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're one of my favorite animals too.
Yes, they are perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your favorite thing you learned about elephants while you were there?
Oh my gosh. I think I learned that they really like watermelon.
Mm,
They don't care if it's not ripe at all or if it's way too overripe. They will eat it no matter what, and they love it.
that's awesome. Very sweet. So tell us about some of the perspective shifts that happened for you while you were in Thailand.
I would say a lot of the different perspectives I learned were about their animals and how they treat them. They don't necessarily extort elephants, but they also use them a lot for profits for these places. I stayed at a sanctuary for 3 days that you had to pay a lot of like the baht, which is the Thai currency, to stay there, and you could swim with them and you could feed them all the time and walk up to them, and it didn't matter, but they were punished kind of and tied up when they first got there to be trained that they were domesticated and they were there for the pets. But it was kind of hard to see that, but also to realize that they were trying to save the species and save them from people actually riding them.
Mm,
Kind of hard to learn, but also they have a great dedication to the forests and their national parks where they forbid fishing a lot, and if you find nets they have no problem just cutting them apart and
hmm,
letting the fish go. They have a special sanctuary there for a rare breed of cattle, a red cattle, that
hmm.
they want to reserve or preserve in a sense. And there's maybe like 8 left. And then they started breeding them and letting them go, and the numbers are in like the 30s now. And it's only been a couple years since they started that.
Wow. So you originally would think that the way that these elephants are treated in the beginning is abusive, but your perspectives shift around that it was really in order to save them and their like species.
Yep, they brought us to different places, a wildlife park, like Yellowstone in a sense, where you see the animals, you can't touch them, they're too far away, they get scared, they've never met people. And then they brought you to one kind of like the petting zoo where you stay there, you touch them, you swim with them. And that was harder to look at, knowing that they were kind of abused to get to the such friendly point. And
Mm.
then there's the other places where they're there and you can walk with them and feed them, but they're allowed to be free.
So we are back after some technical difficulties. Um, and yeah, so Abby, um, do you want to share a little bit more around, like if there is anything in particular about what you learned about the elephants and how they're treated and how these people um, do their work, or anything you learned in Thailand that particularly shifted a perspective for you around your faith or what it means to be faithful?
Sure. So with the elephants, like it didn't really change my perspective, but I just felt that like God was giving the elephants back to their freedom, their land, because they used to roam in Thailand in the jungle, and I know that's a really big problem already with like the tigers and things, that there's not as many of them as there used to be. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really helpful, I think, for me just to feel that like they were being given back what was owed to them
Mm-hmm.
so that we can live in a more harmonious life. And then I felt that like my perspective changed on our use of like resources that
Mm-hmm.
we're used to one use and throwing it away when we could do more. Like a piece of paper printed wrong, we just recycle it right away. There's not something else we could do with it. But for the Thai people, they make paper out of pineapple leaves. They make paper from the elephant poop. They make um, these long leaves into roofs. I mean, everything is made from what's given around them. They can't go to the hardware store like we can. It's just not the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And what an interesting, I mean, I think there's probably many of us who are gaining that perspective these days in some ways
Yeah.
because we're trying not to go to the grocery store as much, or so we're finding ways to use. Would you say, is that happening for you right now at home?
For me, well, I'm always doing different things, so for me it's not that different because where I work, I'm like always there. So
Uh-huh.
I come home and I don't really know what goes on, but I'd like to think my parents are trying to not go to the grocery store as much as I'm like, well, we're out of this, so let's go get it. And with no school, I don't have to pack like any lunches or anything, so I guess
Yeah.
that's some time for me.
Yeah. 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 But there are people around the world who have that resourcefulness figured out in a way that we don't here, don't they?
Yeah, there's nothing we really use from around us. I mean, right now it snowed this morning, so it's one of those things where you can't necessarily get to the ground
Yeah.
plant anything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. Will you share a little bit also about the we talked a little bit about the spirit houses that you um noticed and how that kind of shifted a perspective for you a little bit?
It changed, so I'll just start by saying like it changed my perspective because when you enter buildings, homes, farms, parts of the jungle, hotels, big areas of people like bazaars, they have kind of like Main Street in some areas, and they have a lot of people who walk. So they have these spirit houses, and you ask if you can come in. You ask that you are coming in kindness, and you ask for safety, but the spirits aren't going to do anything. They're just there, but they ask for the positivity and just overall they just want the warm welcoming vibes. They don't want um negative parts of you to go in. And usually you kneel and you like hold like a firecracker in your hand type thing, and then you just say ask for entrance, positivity, and you're coming in peace. And I feel like it changed my perspective religiously just because like we don't ask for anything. Sometimes we often feel ourselves like, oh, I'm only connected to God at church or on the trips, or when I'm with these people I only feel connected to God. But it's not true. A place like a market would have something like this, and you just, it's your connection to someone else.
Hmm. Yeah, it's awesome. It's a good reminder for all of us as we can't go to church to worship together right now that even though it had a different meaning in Thailand, it sounds like it shifted some perspective for you around how God or the sacred, um, which is defined so differently in many different cultures. But for
Yeah.
us as Christians, um, God isn't located just at church, but that God is present at the market and in our homes, um, especially now as our homes have become the worshiping space for us. They've become our sanctuaries, and they're also the spaces where we cook our meals and where we relax and
Do everything right now.
everything. Yeah, yeah, that's really awesome. Do you have any other final words of wisdom to share with us around how your perspective changed? You've already shared a lot of wisdom.
Um, I don't know, just my perspective in general is just be more grateful for the things that we have access to, and grateful for the opportunities, even though that like we can't leave right now, but the opportunities to travel and see the world and help other countries when you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, that is a great nugget of wisdom, Abby. Thank you for sharing with us.
I am happy to.
Yeah.